Ask the Therapist. That's me. I'm here to answer your questions about dating and connecting with other people. Mended Light. So I put out the feelers into the Mended Light community asking you all, what questions do you want me to answer about dating, about your social life, about struggling to connect, and this is what we got. Here we go. How can I get comfortable with putting myself on the dating scene? And how can I build a genuine connection with another person? Basic tips and ideas. I'm going to start with how to build a genuine connection, and then we'll dovetail into how to get comfortable with putting yourself out there. Some of the best rules for building relationships and forming genuine connections is, instead of worrying about being interesting, worry about being interested. In other words, we want to impress. We want to have a life resume that will impress someone and attract a partner. I think we're like the animals in the animal kingdom like that, where we puff out our chests or we throw out our feathers and our big plumage, and we want to draw attention and be attractive and be interesting. But when it comes to dating and all relationships, people want to be appreciated. People want to feel seen. And I have found that when I worry less about not how I appear, definitely grooming is important, best presentation. But when I worry less about how I'm presenting, I worry less about bragging or being cool or being impressive or this person really thinking I'm amazing. That's when I get, that's insecurity is what that is. When I'm truly confident, when I'm secure with myself, I'm happy to talk about myself, I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm more interested in getting to know the other person. We put people at ease when we show that they can be themselves around us. We put people at ease when we show them that we are genuinely interested in who they are, what they like, what their values are, what they want out of life, what they want out of a partner. So that's my advice for building a genuine connection with another person. What about getting comfortable with putting yourself out there on the dating scene? That boils down to getting comfortable with yourself. And that comes down to loving yourself and enjoying yourself and appreciating yourself. So, for example, I'm 43 years old, and I look at pictures of myself in my 20s, the physical prime, and I miss those days. And for a while, there was a lot of insecurity about showing myself in public, being on camera, because I would just keep thinking, this isn't the best me, this isn't the most attractive me, I've got to get back to how I was. And then I get to this place of, I'm okay. I'm okay with who I am, I'm okay with how I look, that I can strive for better health, that I can strive for better fitness, but there's no reason right now not to just say, this is who I am. And you're out on the dating scene looking for others to be attracted to you so that you can feel good about yourself. That's where that insecurity comes, and that's where that discomfort comes from. So what happens if you decide to be body positive? What happens if you decide that however you are in life, what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, what you've done, what you haven't done, where you live, what you do, that it's all okay. The best way to get comfortable with that is to recognize that I love who I am, and I'm looking for somebody who loves who I am. So I don't need to pretend to be something that I'm not, because the right person will see me and choose me. And those who don't have done me a favor by eliminating themselves from the dating pool. So you get comfortable by being comfortable in your own skin and by recognizing that if this is me, then I want somebody who sees this and wants this. How do I open myself up to people in order to make friends instead of always feeling like there's a wall between me and other people? Honestly, I feel like there's a snowball effect. Some people love really deep, profound conversations right off the bat. But for most people, small talk puts them at ease, makes them feel comfortable. And so when I say snowball effect, you start small. You start with showing genuine interest in who the other person is, what they're interested in, what they like, what they're all about. And then hopefully they're asking reciprocal questions. That gives you a chance to open up. And as you start small and you test the waters with this person, and you find that maybe you have some things in common, or the things that you don't have in common are interesting and you want to learn more about that, then you can go from small to medium to big as it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not group therapy, right? You don't need to open yourself up all at once. In fact, even in group therapy, you generally don't have to do that. It's okay if you take weeks, to get to a place where you feel comfortable saying, this is me, and laying it all out. So when it comes to opening yourself up to people, start small, genuinely care, check your motivations. If your motivations are getting validation from them, or getting approval from them, or getting belonging from them, make a deliberate effort to shift from how can I give those things? And if I don't get them in return, am I okay to move on and keep looking? How can you deal with retroactive jealousy or dealing with your partner's sexual past? As with a lot of things, this comes down to personal confidence. So I think that arrogance is counterfeit confidence. Arrogance is I have to be better, I have to be superior, it's comparison. Confidence is I like me, I see me, I'm proud of who I am, and I value my strengths and I want others to have that as well. You'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. Similarly, self-loathing is counterfeit humility. Self-loathing is I suck, I'm terrible, I'm a loser, I'm pathetic. Humility, on the other hand, merges well with confidence. Humility says, I like who I am, I'm confident in my strengths, there's room for growth, there's things for me to learn, I don't have it all figured out, and I'm not the best at everything, and that's okay. That's the healthy version, humility and confidence, and they're actually the same, they're very close to the same thing. Whereas self-loathing and arrogance, ironically, are very close to the same thing as well because self-loathing is masked with arrogance. Why am I bringing all this up in the context of this question? It is an insecurity to be worried about your partner's sexual past in the sense of being jealous. That comes down to, I want to be the best. I want to be the best lover they've ever had. And if I'm not, then I'm like gonna be a consolation prize and they're always gonna wish that they were with a previous lover. And so I get jealous because they had good times, because guess what? Sex is good times. They had good times with somebody else and those memories are still rattling around up there. And so we feel jealous and we feel insecure. But that's self-loathing. That's a form of self-loathing. And then wanting to be the best is a form of arrogance. At least in that context, in the context of covering insecurity or wanting to be the best so I don't feel insecure. If you want to be the best lover they ever had because you love them, and you want to pleasure them, and you want them to feel good, and you want them to feel desired and valued and cherished and all the passion and all the great things that come with that, that's a different motivation. That's a healthy motivation. The fact is most people have a dating past and a passion past of some form or another. Those memories are gonna be there. So how do you deal with the retroactive jealousy? Start by being really good to your partner and not in a desperate plea to get them to stay with you. Just show up as the partner that you want to be. Yes, sexually, of course, but all across the board. Because the relationship itself is the foreplay. I mean, also the foreplay is the foreplay. But living in love and feeling safe and feeling connected and feeling cherished and feeling desired, that's foreplay that lasts all day. And if they have a sexual past and they had a really great lover, don't be afraid to say, okay, I would like to, obviously this is different, I'm not that person. Do you know what I would do? I would say, listen, I respect that you've had sexual partners in the past, and I respect that there were good times there. I care about you, and I want to learn how to please you so that you are present here and now, and you don't feel any desire to think about anybody else. And I understand that might take some time, but I want to talk about it, and I want to learn what pleases you. The best way to deal with that jealousy is by being secure in yourself, how you're showing up as a partner, and to engage in the prolonged process of becoming a better lover. And then you grow in confidence that you're the one they're thinking about. That's my 2 cents. What's a good way to ask about body count in early dating? Okay, so this is not a Halloween or Friday the 13th movie. So why do we call it body count? Is this what people say and I'm just old? And to be clear, I'm not mocking the person asking the question, I'm mocking myself. Do we call it body count and I just don't know? I think we're talking about number of sexual partners. I'd be interested to learn more about respectful ways to get a general sense of the person's past sex patterns for my own STD protection and to gauge compatibility. Thanks. Well, we're talking about patterns, right? We're talking about patterns of sexuality more than how many partners. Because I don't know that the exact number matters as much. That's more of a statistic. I like that you addressed it as patterns, and that's how I would bring it up. Just talking with somebody about sexual values. Listen, are you somebody who had casual sex? Has that been frequent? Has that been infrequent? Is sex more for a serious committed relationship for you? What does that look like? Because that's part of just talking about values. But the past is not the present, and neither is it the future. And so while I think it's important to have those conversations, just as important is to talk about where a person is today. I've known any number of people who, when they were younger, had a fair amount of casual sexual partners, but they got to a place where they're ready to settle in with one person. or in some cases polyamorous relationships. But still, in that case, it's committed, not going from here to here to here to here. It's like this little nucleus group. And so asking and having the conversation about where you've been, but also where are you now, and what do you see the future looking like for you sexually? Are we compatible like that? And then as far as STD protection, I mean, I think for people who are sexually active with multiple partners, it's just a good idea to get tested and to request that, hey, you know, we're all adults. You've had sexual partners. I've had sexual partners. Before we enter that phase, I'd like to get tested. And I feel like anyone who gets insulted by that, it's probably not a good fit anyway, because that just seems like a very mature, responsible thing to do for people who live like that. When it comes to relationships and connections with other people, what's the best way to come to terms for when a connection is not guaranteed? Would you recommend not giving any more effort if it isn't being reciprocated or given back? Depends on the relationship. So we're going to talk about romantic relationships second. First, let's talk about just relationships. That depends on the relationship. So for example, with my kids, I'm going to show up and be a parent, and I'm going to show them love, whether they're reciprocating it or not. Now, the thing about kids is they tend to naturally. But similar thing, if I have family members or friends, I ask myself, what's the nature of this relationship? Am I looking to have my needs met here as well? If I'm not, if I can't count on that person for this, I may still show them love, but I'm not coming to them hoping for reciprocation, because then I'll be disappointed. I'm going to turn to other people and other relationships, which by nature will be more profound, and I'll probably spend more time with them because of the reciprocation. When it comes to romantic partners, I had a buddy in college. He came up with this because we were all in our 20s and chasing women, and but none of us were players. We all just wanted to have relationships. But he had this rule of thumb, which he called the log analogy. So his name is Tim. Some of you know he's my best friend growing up. He comes in to our college apartment. He says, I figured it out. And I said, what's that? He says, the log analogy. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, how much effort to put into a dating relationship. So I stop what I'm doing and I say, go on. He says, imagine upriver, there's loggers and they're felling trees. Now, this is just the analogy, guys, so any environmental concerns should be set aside, because the laws of physics also don't apply in this analogy. But there's hundreds of logs floating down the river. And you're walking along one bank and you see on the opposite side someone that you're interested and attracted to, and you can call out and say hello to them from across the river. And if they keep walking, you may say hello one more time, and if they keep walking, well, that's that. But if you say hello and they stop and they say hello back and you start talking, take a step out onto a log. And you wait for the other person to take a step. And if they don't take a step, then maybe you take one or maybe two more, but then you wait for them to reciprocate. And if they're just staying on their shore, that's an indicator, okay, they're not interested. And you go back to the shore, your side of the shore. Obviously, the idea is you want to be in the center, both of you on a log, floating down the river together to spend your life together. But you don't sprint across the river to the other shore and then see if they want to join you on the river. And you also don't run to the middle and say, I'm ready. And you definitely don't sprint across, grab them, and drag them out to the middle. You take a step, maybe two, and you see if it's reciprocated. And you never go more than two without the other person doing something. And I think that's a good rule of thumb, honestly, for if you're dating or in a romantic relationship, because I think most of us can relate to being in a relationship where you're the more interested person and how frustrating and painful that is. And so having enough self-confidence and enough pride to say, I'm definitely fine to make the first move. I'm definitely fine to make the second move to show interest. But if it's not reciprocated, I'm not going to debase myself to beg somebody to be more interested than they actually are. So these are my answers to your questions on dating and connection. What did you think, and what advice would you give to any of these? Let me know in the comments below. Or what questions do you have for me on this topic for a future video? Let me know right there below. So what do you think you're doing for the next, 10 or 15 minutes? You're watching another one of our videos because I've got one called What is Attachment Theory and How is it Affecting Your Relationships? That's going to show up on screen somewhere right here. Learn more about your attachment style and how it's affecting your relationships today. Until next time, folks, keep shining. We need your light.